So again, as you can see, this particular table gives us a summary of all of those perspectives from the professional with the philosophical and, of course, adding the sociological as well. Let's get down here. There we go. Bray, again, believes that, however, we have a lot of what he calls embedded biases in our technology. In other words, that because of our new technologies, we've now created a lot of instances where new technologies may have created new moral and ethical issues that we simply hadn't talked about before. And so, because of that, then we may not even know how to deal with these new kinds of issues. Basically, Bray also pointed out that one of the weaknesses that we have is that because we might create new types of moral issues, we still rely on our known, moral, what he calls the controversies. In other words, how people have reacted in the past to similar things. And so because of that, many times we don't come up with new practices of dealing with new ethical issues and moral issues until we've had several instances of similar things. And so basically here, one of the things he talks about is where we have morally opaque features for ethical issues. So here are known features that we would normally have. We're aware of these kinds of things, but we may not even know that they have any moral implications as of yet. And for instance, that can include such things as our search engines. When those came out, we weren't probably readily cognizant of the fact that we have bias in search engines, or that people can pay, of course, to have their information put first, or depending on the algorithm that we use, we create natural biases as well. So there are a lot of moral issues that came about because of this that we had never thought about. But in the unknown features, we basically know some new technological features, but again, don't really know what a possible moral problem even could be. So we haven't even thought about it yet. And we see this a lot of times with our data mining technologies, where we use different algorithms that are trying to find patterns that we don't even know exist. So therefore, we might be finding patterns that when we find this particular pattern and then might use it for some instance, we might create some sort of new ethical moral issue we weren't even aware could possibly exist. So as IT professionals, we have to be aware of that. So Bray talks about as the disclosure method, he says, being as we are with IT and computing professionals, we have to understand, however, that this whole idea encompasses a lot of different disciplines. We know, and by the way, IT is in the computing sciences, so computer science. But we also have to understand the basic philosophical, ethical issues and ethical theories that play into this, so that by understanding those, we can use them then in a professional setting. And the social scientists issue, those folks have been brought in now because of the social implications of the internet. And we see this, of course, with new moral things with Facebook and Twitter and other kinds of these communication technologies. So basically, we now see kind of a multidisciplinary but also what he calls a multi-level way of dealing with these new kinds of technologies and the moral and ethical concerns that we might involve. And so first of all, as we said, Bray mentions the disclosure level, but underneath that is that theoretical level which we need to know, which we say are really those basic ethical theories, which we're going to talk about in another chapter. So we have to know what those are so that we can turn around and apply them, and of course that's our last level. So we turn around and apply what we know. And so again, here's our three different levels of those. And notice, being computing, we're at the top level of understanding what's going on in our disclosure, but we're also, of course, having to apply this now in our profession. Now, this particular slide is an example, okay, of one of the processes that we use to actually solve an ethical problem or a moral dilemma. I gave you another one in your lab. We're going to look at that in a second. But this just talks about a three-step method. So first of all, identifying. Notice it says a practice or a feature of the technology, where the controversy is coming from. In other words, it says you should understand all the facts. You should understand your technologies. You should understand how things are all working together and so on. We want then to analyze what's going on. We want to analyze the various features. And for example, again, in our Lockheed example, our analyzing was, do I sign off or I don't on the testing? And so those are the two sides that we have to look at. And then from there, it says we deliberate. And we try to figure out how we should deal with it. We look at, if I sign off on the testing at Lockheed, okay, what does that mean? Who does that affect? Stakeholders. The same thing on if I don't sign off. Same kind of thing. So we talk about all the different pros and cons for both of them. And so with that, that's actually that chapter. So let's go back out now and talk about our Dropbox for a second. So that was chapter 1. And so looking now at our Dropbox, we want to look at the various things that we're going to have. You'll notice that you have group labs. Now I want to mention the group labs. I don't have your groups listed yet. I will hopefully have them posted no later than Thursday. The reason I have to wait that long is we have people adding class up until Thursday. And so at that point I will create the groups, I will post them, and you'll be able to see who your group members are. However, you also see your tests out here. You also see your lab. So we want to look at individual lab 1, which is our first lab that we're going to have for this week. And in this particular lab, get out to the right place here, we need to actually go and look at the attachment, okay? And in our labs, you want to be really careful that you do every part of the lab, because sometimes they have multiple parts. And so let's open this little guy. Usually takes a second. Okay, let's see if it'll open. Try that. I love this little computer, but it doesn't do what I always want it to do. Yeah, I know it's there. Okay. Let's see if it'll open that. Oh, it doesn't want to open. Open, I'll just talk about it. All right. Basically, this particular lab, you're going to have 3 parts. Okay, I think it is going to open. The first part of the lab is going to be where you look at the individual chapter. Okay. And you're also going to be looking at the links in the chapter, and you're also going to be going out to the internet. So let's see if this opens here. Okay, there we go. About 10 times it opened. That's good, okay. Anyway, so basically for the first part of the lab, notice it says you're going to go out to the internet. This is an individual lab, not a group lab. And so you go to the internet, you're going to find 2 different articles. And dealing with computer ethics in some way, shape, or form, it's your choice. you're going to write a one-page synopsis for each one of the articles. So you'll have 2 different pages, okay, 1 page for each article. And the synopsis, it tells you, generally what you should include. One of the main things that I want you to include is your opinion. What did you think of the article? Did you like it? Were there certain things you agreed with, certain things you didn't, etc.? So give your opinion there. So that's part 1. Part 2 is that basically you're going to, after reading the chapter 1, okay, and of course we just had the slides basically, you're going to write a half-page synopsis of that chapter. It says each chapter here, but it's just chapter 1. So you write a half-page synopsis of what the chapter was about, so high points. And then part 3, you need to read each one of your links. There are 2 links, okay, link 1 and link 2, and that you're going to write a half-page synopsis of each separate link. Now be real careful. I want you to identify what it is you're writing about. So for instance, if you are doing the synopsis of the chapter, say chapter 1 synopsis. If it's the first link, chapter 1, link 1, etc. Chapter 1, link 2. So make sure you're identifying what it is that you're writing. You'll turn everything in through D2L, through the Dropbox, and the formats, again, that we have are a doc or a docx or a text or PDF. Okay, those are the formats that I want you to use. Since we have 3 different parts here, I don't want you to do 3 different files. Put everything in one file, all right, and submit it that way. And so with that, that's basically the end of this particular module. And hopefully, again, as I said, we will do more of these YouTubes that we'll be able to post, and so you'll be able to go back and look at information as you need to. So again, welcome to our IT 6643, and I look forward to the class and our 8 weeks together. Thanks.